Welcome to the Peace of Living podcast. We are your hosts, Jason
and Allison,
and we're very happy to be with you for another week. And we have actually another special guest tonight. I know 2 weeks in a row with a guest, and this one's really cool. Last week we had Craig and Laurie, who are Allie's parents, and that was awesome, talking about some Christmas memories and just the joy of Christmas. And we appreciate everybody who's listened to that podcast. And we're now recording this after Christmas, post-Christmas, and our special guest tonight is none other than Santa, my dad himself. And so here he is. This is Eric Bell, and this is my dad, and he's been my dad for my whole life. He's been wonderful. But my dad, if you've met him, he is literally the embodiment of Santa Claus. He actually does Santa Claus, goes around to people's homes and, parties, businesses, get-togethers, whatever. And he's been doing it for a long time. And it's been really cool to see him, throughout a lot, like at least probably like half my life, see him kind of become Santa and everything that Santa stands for. And maybe even especially as a symbol of Jesus Christ. And so we wanted to have him on now that his busy season's over and just kind of talk a little bit about his experience, becoming Santa, what he's seen and how he's grown from it. And also just, any experiences that he's had that have, brought him closer to Jesus Christ and even made him more like him. And so anyway, welcome, Dad.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess just to start off, why don't you just kind of fill in our listeners and us? How did you first get into being Santa?
That's probably the most commonly asked question that people ask me about doing this. And the truth is, I don't really know. I can honestly tell you this, and I like your choice of words when you said we're going to talk about my journey of becoming Santa, because it's when you decide to do this, it is not about playing a role. It's about actually becoming something greater than yourself. And in fact, this year I had a 20-something-year-old comment after we took pictures. He looked at me and he said, "Nice costume." And I was actually kind of offended and abrupt with him. I said, "It's not a costume."
Yeah.
And he goes,
"This is who I am."
"What do you mean?" And I said, "This is who I am."
Yeah. Right.
And you don't play Santa. You become.
Mm-hmm.
You truly, and it's a journey and an effort. It started, I wanted to be Santa. I think the first time, and we should mention that my wife and Jason's mother, Julian, is here because my memory is somewhat spotty. But I remember one of my many brothers lost his job, and it was right before Christmas. And we were quite young, but we had a pretty decent year. And so we decided, just between the two of us, this was long before you were born, we decided we were going to do Christmas for him. And we did. And we convinced a neighbor who actually had a suit and a beard and everything. We convinced him to drop the gifts off for us. And we drove out there in Julian's dad's truck, and he took the gifts up to the door, and we crouched down and watched from inside the truck. And I thought, this is really cool. I want to do this. I want to have this effect on people. And then it wasn't too many years later. Again, I believe it was before you were born. Yeah, so it was in the first 3 years we were married. Her sister's ward needed a Santa. And I said, I'll do it. And they had a suit. And they loaned me the suit. And It was a ward in Glendale area. I went there, and it was just an amazing experience. And then as a few years went by, and my beard turned white, and I can't tell you why, except that this is as much a calling for me as any other calling in the church. And I really believe that's why my beard turned white, to give me an opportunity to do this. And people started asking me to do it. And the experiences I've had have been amazing. That's the only word for it. It's absolutely amazing over the years as I've progressed and just had the opportunity to share the spirit of the season with people. And as you know, I'm not, I don't know how to say it, but let me say it this way. I've never said so many prayers. I say more prayers in my truck before every event than I ever say anywhere else.
Yeah. Why is that? Like, what are you hoping that the people experience?
Because I look at being Santa as it's my responsibility to bring the spirit of the season, the spirit of I mean, we celebrate Christmas and everybody, sorry, when I answer questions, as you know, I give long answers to short questions. But everybody thinks, oh, Santa's just this commercialized person, and Christmas is too commercialized, and I disagree. Christmas is about the ultimate gift we were ever given in the birth of our Savior, and it's my job as Santa to not overtly remind people of that. It's my job to bring a spirit such that they will be filled with wonderment and amazement and a spirit of kindness and a desire to be kind and be good. And in some cases, it's my job to represent the entity the kids believe in. I find it really interesting. I'll sit. Tens of thousands of kids have sat on my lap or stood in front of me, and I'll ask them what they want for Christmas, and they tell me what they want. But it's not their number one concern. Their number one concern is almost always that their family be happy and together. Sorry, I don't even know what the original question was.
No, that's great. Well, and to all of you listening, you can probably just tell by, the spirit in which my dad is speaking about this. It's like very reverential and it's never, there's a lot of Santas for hire out there. And I know with my dad, it's never been about, doing it for the money. And I
Yeah,
think that,
no.
and there's probably a lot of Santas who do really well, and you could probably do better, right? Financially. But that's not what it's about for you. And I think the spirit
No.
of that comes through. That's why you're booked, from morning till night every day, starting with really Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
Through the Christmas.
It's I've coached a lot of guys that have asked me and have become Santas, and they're very good Santas. There are a lot of good Santas out there.
Yeah.
A lot.
I don't mean any
really
disrespect
good
to
Santas.
any Santas.
But the first thing when a guy comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to be Santa. I want to do this. I want to do what you do." The first thing I tell him is, "Okay, that's awesome, and we always need more Santas. We do, because I turn away tons of gigs every year."
Yeah.
So if you're listening and you don't even have to be fat, okay? If you have any kind of desire at all, that's just a plug for we need more Santas. But the first thing I tell them is, look, you don't choose the suit. The suit chooses you.
Yeah.
And if you're doing this for money, I remember one guy asked me, well, how much money can I make? And I looked at him and I says, you can make as much as you want.
Yeah.
He says, well, how much? How much? And I says, look, man, if that's why you're doing this, you're doing it for the
It's not
wrong
for you.
reasons. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is not,
Sure.
this is, this is not about money. It is for a lot of guys, and that's great. That's what, floats
Yeah,
their
sure.
boat.
Sure.
Uh, but that's not where the true joy comes in. It's happiness, yeah, but it's not true joy. True joy comes from a totally different source.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was kind of getting at is like, if you're listening to this, hopefully you can tell, like, you know, this is something that's beyond than just like doing it for money. This is something about like bringing, like you said, a spirit, and representing, like, I mean, what greater symbol of Jesus at Christmas time is there than Santa, right? Like, down to how he looks. And I mean, it's almost like and what he wears, but it's almost like you've been, prepared for this like your entire life. And I mean, not only like your physical form and features, but just your spirit, and your voice and your eyes, and like even, how you wear your glasses and stuff. Like it's pretty cool. And I think that, like you said, it's neat to see, that calling, in a sense, like, come into your life, and to see you grow into it. And I guess, that's one thing I wanted to ask is like, how, you've been doing this a while. How has it, or has it, I don't know if it has or not, but how has it kind of evolved over the years for you? Has it changed? Has the meaning? And also, I'm just curious, like, I mean, you've kind of already answered this, but how has it evolved? But also, like, what is it that keeps you going, keeps you doing it year after year?
That's a really good question because it's definitely been an evolution. It's been a path that I'm the kind of person that is obsessed with getting things done, as you know.
Yes. Yes.
But I've finally realized, and that's one thing that becoming Santa has taught me is that you're never done. You never get there, not in this life.
Right.
So much of that is, and it's so much like the gospel. Um, we're never complete. And that's our objective, is to become complete, right? To become whole, to become one with God. But we're never going to achieve that in this life. It's a path that is continuous. It's always there in front of us. There's always more to learn and more to do. Um, and I remember a few landmark moments in my career as Santa. Um, One was they really changed my perspective of what I was doing and why I was doing it. One was I was at a party at a apartment complex, a lot of kids, and it was fairly successful, higher end type location. And I noticed that around me were mostly the moms of these children at this dinner party. And they were all very well dressed, executive type dress, very successful. Not a lot of fathers. Now, and this was late in the evening, so if their dads were around, they should have been there. But so I'm assuming that there wasn't a lot of dads, but still a fairly successful group of people. And one little boy came up to me, and I chatted with him, and I asked him how he'd been, whether he'd been trying to be good. And boy, we could have a whole podcast on the naughty nice list, by the way, and how much I dislike the way people use it. But we'll talk about that another time.
Mm-hmm.
Chatted with him. I says, "How you doing? Are you trying to be good?" And he says, "Yeah." I says, and so one of the questions I like to ask them when they tell me how good they've been is I'll say, "Well, did you make your bed this morning?" Because almost inevitably they get this look on their face like, "Oh no."
Yeah. Yeah.
But he looked right at me and said, "I don't have a bed." I says, "You don't have a bed? Where do you sleep?" He says, "I sleep on the couch in the living room because there's not enough beds for all of us. And I thought, here's a 9-year-old kid that doesn't have a bed. Another one that happened, I was at a school for children whose parents lived in the homeless shelter. We had worked with a local high school, and the kids had sent a list that the high school students had bought the presents, and we were distributing the presents to the children. There's one little boy sitting there at his desk, and he has a stack of wrapped presents on his desk. Everyone else in the room is opening their presents. He is not. I walked over and I says, "Hey, how you doing?" He says, "Oh man, it's great. I got just what I wanted." And he held up a 3-pound bag of M&Ms. He said, "It's exactly what I wanted." I said, "But what about these other presents?" "Oh, no, this is what I wanted." I said, "But don't you want to open these?" And his classmate in the desk next to him tugged on my coat and said, "Hey, Santa." And so I turned to him and he says, "What?" I said, "What?" And he says, "All the other presents on his desk are what he asked for his little sister." Because he knew that his parents didn't have any money to buy presents for her. All he wanted was a 3-pound bag of M&Ms for himself. So these are events that, let me tell you one more, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm going to read it to you because this one changed my life. I'm just, for those of you at home, I'm taking out my phone. We were at an event, and this little girl and her family had already come up. They'd all visited with me. They'd all taken pictures. And then they had gone to get hot chocolate and cookies. But she hung around. She kind of orbited around where my chair was, watched me talk to other kids. She'd walk up to me, and then she'd turn and walk away. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I kind of wondered what she was doing. Then finally, she worked up her courage. She ran up to me, handed me a folded up piece of paper about the size of a quarter, and ran away. I assumed it was her Christmas list. I took it and put it in where I normally put Christmas lists and letters to take home with me. I got home that night, took off my suit. It fell out of the sleeve of my coat where I put those things. And I opened it up, and here's the letter I got. She'd written this: "Dear Santa." Keep in mind, on the front of it, she'd written her name and her age. She was 11 years old. "Dear Santa, most kids would ask for toys and dollies. But for Christmas, I would like my parents to not fight for a week, not saying mean things to each other, and not yelling either. If you can't get me that, I guess I would like nothing this year. But I will still believe. I love you. You are the best in the world. I hope you fly safe this year. Love." And then her name. "P.S. Thank you for all you do. I love you." You cannot get something like that and become Santa for the money, and become Santa just for the commercialization of Christmas. When you realize that sometimes these kids are offering up a prayer to the only entity that they know and believe can help them. So every time I put on the suit, I think of Abby. And I pray that I can help the next Abby that comes up to me at least find a little peace and a little happiness and the spirit of the season.
Man, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I'm a little teary-eyed just listening to it. Yeah, it was cool Finn, left out his letter to Santa this year, and it's just cool how just like little kids just like love him. And I don't think it's just because of presents, although it might be that way for Mary. She's like, Santa's my favorite. Why? Well, he brings presents. But Finn's letter, he was like, just like, I love you. Thank you. Like, it was cool. It was really cool. And I think
Did you see the letter that he wrote and left at our house?
I don't know. I don't think so.
It was the day after I visited his elementary school,
Uh-huh.
and it said, "Dear Santa, slant or comma, or Santa's helper, comma, or Papa."
Someone.
Yesterday, you visited our school and filled it with the Christmas spirit.
Mm,
Thank you.
it's cool.
And it was absolutely, I mean, it was the kindest, sweetest letter. It ended with, "P.S. I really want a Cloud Cruiser, that Hot Wheels car."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's fine. But it was such, and every time I get a letter, that's how they're worded.
Yeah.
Santa, I love you.
I just wanted to interject while we're talking about Finn. I just you mentioned how you don't like naughty and nice lists. So a couple weeks ago, I heard the kids fighting in the other room, and I just hear Mary go, "You're wrong, you're wrong," and she runs into my room in tears, and she's like, "Mommy, Finn Man says you have to be nice all the time to be on the nice list." And I was like, "Well, yeah, we try to be nice all the time. That's the ideal." And she's like, "But just on Christmas, you only have to be nice on Christmas." and I was like, "Well, actually, we want to try to be nice all the time, but it's okay if you make mistakes, you know." And I was like, "Mary, have you been naughty?" And she goes, "A little bit." so, but she was so concerned that she was going to be on the naughty list for a moment because she didn't have a perfect track record. But it made me think of when you were on Fox 13 earlier this month, and they were interviewing you and asking like, "So who's on the nice list, Santa?" And you, I loved your response. You said, "Everybody's on the nice list. Like you have to be really, really, really trying
You have
really
to
hard
work
to
really hard to
yeah."
get on the naughty list.
And I loved that response because I'm like, isn't that the truth? Like, there's something nice about all of us. Like, nobody's all bad, you know, or getting everything right all the time. But it just hit that spot for me because, as we're preparing Finn for his baptism, just like in 10 days, it's coming up so fast. We've had a lot of conversations with him about like, when you get baptized, like it represents being cleansed from your sins, but that doesn't mean that you're going to stay clean forever after that. Like you are going to make mistakes, and Heavenly Father knows you're going to. And that's why He gave you Jesus. And all He does is He expects you to come back to Him when you do make mistakes every time, and I just thought that was sweet because as in Finn's letter to Santa, he had written that he was worried he was on the naughty list because he didn't think he was as nice this year as last year. And I don't know why, because I'm like, actually, I think that you've gotten even better every year, like he's improved so much. But it's Santa's response, I thought hopefully helped him. Santa told him in his letter back to him, like, you have always been good and you always will be. And he read that and his eyes just lit up. And he's just like, "Mom, I'm going to keep this letter from Santa forever because it reminds me that I am good."
Yeah.
But I think we all need that reminder. Like we are good and Santa knows it.
And that's part of my personal mission as Santa is that to remind people and remind parents that their kids are good. They're trying to do good, and the parents are trying to do good. But that is probably the number one question when I get a group of kids is, am I on the nice list? And it kind of hurts my heart a little bit when they ask that and I tell them, look, I ask the whole room, I said, how many of you in this room try and do the right thing? And of course, everybody raises their hand, unless they're fifth or sixth graders. And then there's a couple of smart Alex that are like, "Nah, not me." But that's another story. And then I ask them, okay, now everybody raise your hand if you always do the right thing. And of course, nobody raises their hand. And I said, look, nobody, even Santa, doesn't do the right thing all the time. I make mistakes. But that's the beauty of the season, that we got a Savior who said, it's okay. You can fix it and come back. So if you do something wrong, you fix it. And then you say, I'm going to try and do better. And because that's what you do, you stay on the nice list. You don't ever move to the naughty list. You stay on the nice list. And that's always been what I've talked to kids about. I'm kind of ashamed to say that this season I actually made one girl cry when I said that, because I said, how many of you always do the right thing? And she kept her hand up. And I said, really? Nobody does the right thing all the time. And she started to cry.
Oh.
And I said, honey, come and talk to me. And in talking with her, she's deadly serious. She always tries to do the right thing. And that's another lesson Santa learned this year, is you can never be flippant about things when flippant about important things. Mm-hmm. You have to remember that some of these things are absolutely serious to the kids you're talking to. Mm-hmm. And I had to have a little one-on-one with her, and hopefully I patched things up a bit.
Yeah. I've learned that same lesson the hard way in seminary.
Yeah.
I totally get it. Well, you mentioned a little bit of this, but are there any other ways that you feel like Jesus or Santa is such a great symbol or representation of Jesus? And how have you tried to develop those qualities in yourself?
Well, I think Santa is a great representation of Jesus, because oftentimes, the phrase, what would Jesus do, gets overused to the point where it becomes kind of cliched, if you will.
And sometimes it's used as a beating stick. Like, what would Jesus do? Right?
Exactly.
Like, well, okay.
And it goes back to the way you started, the first thing we talked about. We, as human beings, we desperately want a measuring stick to measure ourselves against. We want a to-do list. So we want to do this, check it off. We got a punch list. We're going to check it all off. And Jesus wants us to do those things. But he doesn't want us to do them because they're on the list. He wants us to become something so that what is in our heart, that's what drives us to do those things. That's why, my favorite scripture in the Doctrine and Covenants says, all he wants is a willing heart. If you have a willing heart, and in Ezekiel, he says, I'll give you a new heart. I'll take your heart of stone and I'll give you a heart of flesh, a heart that feels, a heart that is capable of love. And if we can get that heart, then the doing part of things, if we can become like Jesus, then the doing part of things is a natural outgrowth of that. It's not an external, oh, I did it, because you can check off a checklist and have a heart as cold as stone. But if you change your heart first, and that is what being Santa is all about having a giving heart. Santa doesn't want to get gifts. He wants to give. Jesus, his whole life was about giving. His whole life was about bringing joy and happiness. It was not about, as you say, a beating stick.
Yeah.
Do this, do this, do this. That was pretty much the law of Moses and the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They took what was a beautiful concept and turned it into a beating stick to drive people to obedience. Jesus came and said, no. What I want you to do is change your heart and then do. Because once you change it, doing becomes easy. And that I have learned not in Sunday school and not in church, but I've learned it being Santa, becoming Santa. Because as you become Santa, you realize that you are an earthly representation, and you are performing exactly what Jesus would do. So I ask myself, not what would Jesus do? I ask myself a lot, what would Santa do?
Mm-hmm.
And Santa does it out of love. Jesus does it out of love. He's not, well, sorry. He's the shepherd. He's not a sheep herder.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to drive us from behind. He's not going to send the dogs to nip at our heels to force us to go somewhere. He's out in front, leading, saying, come with me. I'll show you a better place. Come follow me. And that's what Santa does. He's not going to drive people to give presents. Presents they're mostly symbols anyway.
Yeah.
He's going to lead by example.
Yeah. That's great, Dad. Thank you. So when you think back on your time as Santa, let me just give some background too. Like, I don't know if I can't ignore the correlation. I don't know if it's like, direct, but it seems like as you've been doing Santa the last, 15, however many years, um, there has been kind of a softening, maybe that just comes with age too. I don't know, but like, I feel like like we keep saying the phrase becoming Santa, like it has been a process, I think, and there has been like an effect on you, but are there experiences that you've had as Santa that's especially, that you can think back on, or just maybe it's the cumulative experience, but are there any experiences that have like, you feel like you mentioned some of the letters and everything, but are there any others that specifically have strengthened your faith in Jesus Christ and helped you maybe even find peace in him, right? We're the Peace of Living podcast in reference to Jesus, but anything come to mind as you think back and the experiences that you've had that stand out in your development of your faith?
Wow. Good question. There's been a lot of experiences, but I would say the greatest effect has been the cumulative effect of just seeing countless children. Watch a child walk into whatever venue you're in, or even encounter you in the grocery store, and watch their eyes light up and the smile spread across their face, and realize that is not because of Eric Bell. It's because Santa is right there in front of them. And it's not because Santa brings them presents. It's because Santa loves them unconditionally. And to see that time and time again is the most magical thing. I don't even know how to describe it unless you've had that experience. And I know you have in some ways when students have recognized you maybe outside of seminary.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to say, actually, it kind of like, I had this dawning comprehension just now that like, I joke with Allie because I love, and my students know, hopefully, that I love them, but I also like joke with Allie, like, I kind of do enjoy that I live, 30 minutes away from where I work, because I do enjoy some degree of anonymity here in my local community. Whereas there, I'm running into people all the time. If I go to the store out there, I go to Swig or anywhere, there's someone there, whether it's a student or a parent or someone who knows me. I mean, my a poster of me with my face on it is like in every church building in that area. And so it's like nice to come and like just be anonymous. But you, I just realized you never get that. Everywhere you go, it doesn't matter because it's not Eric. You represent Satan.
Yeah.
you, wow, sorry.
I
You represent, sorry, Santa. And it's like, hopefully that's short, probably not to all students, but to some of them, hopefully during that time, I can at least not represent Jesus, but point, be a pointer to him, right?
exactly.
Be a mirror to shine his light, but you do that all the time and you never get the anonymity because my dad, I mean, if you could see him right now, he's got a big, giant, beautiful white beard that I'll never grow. Okay. I just don't have that gene. And he's got like a red cap on and you look like this year round and it's pretty unmistakable. And I mean, and wherever you are, like at least along the Wasatch Front, like there's, there are a lot of people who know you at this point, like thousands and thousands of people. And so anyway, what I'm trying to get at is, yes, I've experienced that to some degree, but I also like once I get on the freeway and take that 30-minute drive home, it's like I can feel I'm not going to probably encounter anybody the rest of the day that I've taught or parents or anybody else. And in some ways that's kind of nice, but also at the same time, if I am at the store out there getting a drink or something, I do recognize while I'm out and about, like I do represent, like I really, like I do, like, and I know people know who I am out there. And it's like, I would hope that my behavior and conduct is a bright reflection, like John the Baptist, where Jesus described him as a bright and shining light, not of his own light, but of Jesus's. And, yeah, anyway, I'll admit I probably enjoy the anonymity probably a little more than maybe I should, but like, anyway, it's cool that you're always on. You're never really off. Especially if children, when any kids
Yeah.
are around, like adults, but like, especially kids, you're never off.
No, and but it's awesome because, like you say, it gives me an opportunity to reflect the light, and to reflect the light of Jesus, to reflect the light of the season. And if there was one thing I truly wish I could be, if I could, if I were to find a magic lamp and get a genie to grant me a wish, it would actually be Santa Claus. But I know that's not going to happen. So what I can do instead of that is to represent Santa and Jesus and that wonderful message all year long. So that, I mean, in the middle of July, I can still be Santa. I can still represent that mission. In fact, most of the families that I visit, and I don't go looking for new gigs because I have plenty. And a lot of the families that I go to, I've been going to for years. And most of them are people who saw me. Well, perfect example, the family I visit up in North Ogden, she saw us at Chick-fil-A. Mom and I were there and we had Finn with us when Finn was just a little toddler. And she came charging across the restaurant and said, and I was dressed just like this with my red cap on it. And she came charging across the restaurant and says, "You gotta be Santa." And I've been going to her house ever since. And that was all those years ago. And the other families that I go to, some of them I've been going to for almost 16, 17 years. I go to families now who literally, the kids I'm sitting on my lap now are the children of the children that sat on my lap all those years ago. but it's all year long. And I have to be that representative. I cannot not be. And yes, you're absolutely right. There's been a softening of me and a rounding of a lot of hard edges that, I mean, your growing up years were not easy. I know, because I'm not, I've never been an easy person to be around, but becoming Santa has changed me and changed my life. And it's also opened my eyes. I'm sorry, I'm taking up too much time here, but
What's for?
one thing that's always bothered me, as I would read the scriptures, what was Christ and the apostles really like? And that's one of the things, I know we've discussed this, one of the things I love about The Chosen is it shows them as real people. But I've always thought, what were they like? And did they have fun? Did they enjoy things? And I've kind of been able to, as Santa, I've been able to explore that a little bit. What's it like to truly have fun as a representative of something like this? And I just get it. I went to an event where huge family, probably 20, 25 kids there, all grandkids of this family. They were holding it in like this big church gymnasium, big dinner. And grandma had bought all the kids a present. All the girls got something. All the boys got Nerf guns. And I'm sitting up on the stage chatting, and this little boy walks up to the front of the stage, draws down on me, and fires away and hits me right between the eyes with a Nerf dart. And I said, that's it. And I threw my bag down, jumped up, grabbed one of the Nerf guns, and started chasing him around the gym. And we had this massive Nerf war between me and all the girls started grabbing Nerf guns. We had this huge Nerf gun battle.
That's great.
Which was, it was as awesome as you can imagine it. But I discovered that I'm willing to bet that when Christ was with the children, he blessed them, but I bet he also played with them. I'll bet he carved, just like in The Chosen, I'll bet he carved little toys for him. I'll bet he played with them. I'll bet he ran with them, like Joseph wrestled with the kids. I'll bet he did that. I'll bet his apostles did that. And that's a side that sometimes we don't think too much about. But that's part of this joy that I've been trying to study and learn about. Joy versus happiness. And being able to truly have fun with the people you're serving is joyful. So that's been a whole change of perspective and a change in me that has come about because of this.
I think it's funny that you said that if you could have any wish of your heart, it would be to be the real Santa, when in my mind, you are. You are Santa.
Thank you.
But for real though, no, do you have a team of reindeer and do you pop down everyone's chimney? No, you don't do that. But those are the least important parts of Santa. I think for everything good that Santa represents and is, you embody those characteristics. And the thing that makes me really happy is that our kids, as they age and the Santa idea evolves for them over time, they'll have a living example of what Santa really is. And they'll be able to confidently say to people yeah, Santa is my papa. And I know that because I've watched them. I've watched you as a grandpa these past 8 years, and I've seen how my kids they cozy up to Papa on the couch while they watch their shows, and they love spending time with you in your little wood shop, toy factory area of the garage. And you bring joy to people. You are selfless. You're always over here fixing things for us. I don't know what we would do without you. Our first response anytime something breaks is call Eric. Forget YouTube. Call Eric.
Yeah, just yesterday, it was something so dumb and little as like the toilet paper holder downstairs, and I was
You fix that for us while you're here.
but I was like, it's like, I don't know what happened to it, but it's like all loose and I couldn't get it tight. And Mary comes walking in. She's like, "What are you doing, Dad?" And I'm like, "I'm trying to fix this." And she's like, "Maybe we should just call Papa." Like, yeah, maybe I should.
Well, that's the same Mary that walked up to me after sacrament meeting last Sunday. And saw me, "Oh, Papa," and runs up and gives me a big hug, and I'm feeling real good. And she looks up at me with those big brown eyes and says, "Do you have any lifesavers?"
Yeah. Yep. No, but I just want to echo what Allie was saying. I don't know if you were done there, but just, I mean, you talk about, and I'm not just saying this to make you feel good, but like when I say like you embody Santa, you do. And like not just Santa, but you embody Jesus. Like, I mean, and you know, at least for the last, again, since Santa's become more a part of your life, it's, you know, even going back to like, it's not about the money. Like it's not, you know, for you. And like everything you do is just like, I mean, you're always, not to like go on and like make you embarrassed, but like this guy, he's always out visiting people in the ward, like always, always, always. And he has, as long as I can remember, he's got this red F-150 that's like, you know, deep red, crimson, it's beautiful. And like the, you know, the license plate says Fly 1224. But it's like, you see that thing rolling around the neighborhood all the time. And it's like, what else would Santa be doing? What else would Jesus be doing other than spreading Christmas cheer, or in other words, the cheer of the gospel of Jesus Christ? And maybe it's not overtly, you're not like, you know, like here's a scripture, whatever, but it's like, it's just your presence. You're like literally like, you know, NCE, right? Your presence of being with people is a gift. And like that happens in July, that happens in August. That's like year round, you're doing, you know, the Santa thing, the really the Jesus thing. And like you're just such a great representation of him. And it's been really cool to see that. And I'd like to think that, you know, part of that hopefully is rubbed off on me, and it's continuing to rub off because it's like really awesome. And this, you know, this life is short. And I think, I think, you know, you're just got to be one of the wealthiest, richest guys I know, you know, just because of how you've chosen to live and share and care for others. It's really cool.
Well, thank you. Now I am embarrassed.
I know,
but it's what we do, right?
Yeah.
I've always taken things very literally, probably too literally. I mean, you know, in primary, when I was 1,000 years ago, when I was in primary, when they would teach us something, I go, yeah, okay. And when they said we should share, then great, then I'll share. And I told you guys the other night at the party I was at, I always took things literally. You know, the Give said the little stream story I told you.
Yeah.
Which for you listeners, ask me sometime, I'll tell you about it. But I take it very literally when I covenant to share everything. If that's what it takes, then that's what I'll give.
Yeah.
It hasn't always been that way for me. I've not always been like that. It's been a process of becoming.
Yeah.
It's been a process of learning, of striving. It's been a process of striving to change my heart of stone, which, as you know, I had for a very long time. And my selfishness. And I've had the blessing of going through some things that have changed who I am. And one of the biggest things that's changed who I am is becoming Santa. And realizing that there are certain things that I will never be. Not because I can't, it's just that I'm never going to be a scriptorian. I'm never going to be a gospel expert like you. But what I can do is do all that I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and I've got certain gifts and talents, and I will do all that I can with what I've got. And I'll strive to learn others and gain others. But there is so much I can do with what I've got that I really don't have time to pursue learning of a lot of other things, because there's so much that needs to be done. And I've got the skill set to do some of that. And becoming Santa has taught me that. It's taught me that as you serve kids, they really don't ask for a lot. They just want your time and your attention.
It's true.
They just want to know that you are present in their world. Being not presence, like you said, but being present. And as Santa, if I can do that, then that's what I'll do. And I'll do it all year long.
Yeah.
And I'll do my very best to reflect the light, the true light that is out there. But it's taken me a long time to understand this and figure it out. I haven't figured it out completely, but I feel like I'm on my way finally.
Yeah. You're right. And it is a process. And it's been cool because, I mean, we all have a part to play, like we've talked about before on this podcast. And it's been cool to see you just play your part well and get better at it over the years.
The amazing thing is if you really dedicate yourself to doing something and dedicate yourself to pursuing it, that you can actually change. You can change your whole life. You can change your whole viewpoint. And you really learn truly what fun is.
Yeah, it's true.
Fun and joy come from serving other people. They don't come from any other. They're internal things that project outwards. There is nothing external that can bring that in. And the more you share and the more you give, the more you have that joy, and it grows and grows exponentially inside.
Yeah. So fun. You're right. It's a lot of fun. We kind of saw that even just last week. I mean, we had that institute class, which we weren't even planning on doing. But we just thought, well, let's just do it. You know, it was a little bit of a sacrifice, and Allie came out and taught it with me. And it was time out of the night and, the kids, but it was a really great experience for us both. And we just left beaming, you know, and it's just amazing what a little bit of sacrifice or a little bit of service does, for the soul. It's like, I always say, like, you always give God like a little bit, like just give him a night, just sacrifice just a little bit more. And he always gives back way more. Like that really set the tone for the whole rest of the Christmas weekend. It was cool. It was really cool. Just like that little bit more of giving, what it does. And what, again, another symbol of Santa, another symbol of Jesus. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's, I've also learned the hard way that if I go into a gig as Santa and I go, I got this. Yeah, I've been doing this a long time. I got this. That sure as the world, it may go well, but I'm going to come out of it no better or more fulfilled than I was going in. But if I go into it with a prayer and with the attitude and the seeking of, let me find the one.
Yeah.
Let me do what you would do. Let me reflect your light. Then it always comes out. I come out full. They come out full. Everybody is edified and fed.
It's a very similar experience that I've had of teaching. I mean, some of these, lessons I've taught a lot at this point, and it's like, I don't need to prepare. I don't need to
I got it.
I know what the scripture says, whatever. It's the same experience. But it's cool, like, to say that prayer and to like take it seriously every single time, and then be willing to let go.
Yeah.
And go as he directs. And it's magic. It's awesome. So I don't know if you have anything you want to ask, but I've got one more question. And that is if you could send one message 100 years into the future for your posterity to hear, what would it be? Think of your great, great, great grandkids that'll be listening to this someday. What would you want them to know? And this could be about Santa. This could just be in general about anything. Like, what would you want to say?
Basically, a summary of what we've talked about tonight. That if I could say anything to anyone, my posterity, anyone, it's this. Life is about becoming. It's not about doing. Doing is good. It's good. But doing it without becoming something new and better is just, sorry, this should be a serious thing, but it's really just putting lipstick on a pig.
No, that's pretty much what Jesus said, right?
You've got to change who you are. And by doing that, by becoming something better, something higher, something holier, something celestial, then what you do also becomes something higher and holier and celestial. Instead of checking boxes, check your heart and then do. You can have doing without checking your heart, but it's only going to accomplish tasks. It's not going to help anyone. But if you check your heart and then do, it's not only going to accomplish a task, it's going to change people's lives and your life. I wish I had understood that years ago. And I wish but we are, as humans, we're the children of Israel. We can be led to the mount. The prophet could come down and say, come on, let's go up. It's time for you to meet God. And what do we say?
Nah,
we're good. No, it is time to meet God.
Yeah.
And by meeting him, he will change you. And if you allow him to do that, you can do so much more than just doing things on your own. So if I could tell anyone a message, that would be my message. Become something. Become Santa. I'm not asking you to become Jesus. I'm not asking you to become perfect. Become Santa. Become a reflector of the light.
That is really great. There's just one last thing that I feel like we have to mention, not as an afterthought by any means, but just, there's no Santa without Mrs. Claus. And I know Mrs. Claus doesn't want to talk, and we're not going to make her talk.
No, she doesn't want to.
We will not make her do that, but I feel like we have to shout her out because we know that you could not be the Santa that you are, both in a literal and a figurative sense, without the lovely lady next to you, who, by the way, makes the best gingerbread that we ate before we recorded this very podcast episode. It was so good. So she's the real Mrs. Claus, too.
She truly is. And I have to say, because frankly, I was a little bit jealous on your last podcast with all your family traditions, and you guys do so much. The Brewsters are an awesome family. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, what does my family do? They sit at home while Dad is out running all around the state, doing appearances and doing what he does. But I could not do it without her support. I could not do it without her making sure that everything is working. It's like Santa runs on logistics, and logistics run on Mrs. Claus. And I couldn't do it. It would be impossible for me to do this on my own. And so I truly appreciate. And yeah, she threatened me with sudden and immediate death if I tried to make her talk on this. So can I just leave you with, I know we've talked about a lot of serious stuff, but I do have to leave you with a few stories about some funny things.
Yeah.
Okay. You can cut these out if you want, but some of my favorite episodes. I'm at a venue where there's a lot of people from the whole town there. And they said, hey, we're going to the a bunch of adults from the um, special needs adults have come, and they want to see you. And there's a line going clear out the door of the building where I am. And all of a sudden, this guy sticks his head in, who's about 50 some odd years old. He looks at me and he yells, "See, I told you he'd be here. I told you he'd be here." And he was one of the special needs adults. And when they got to the front of the line, this guy takes off running at me like a little kid.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I'm sitting in a chair and I'm thinking, all I could think of is, this is really going to hurt. Because, and he launches himself in the air like Michael Jordan from the foul line and lands on my lap. But he is so overjoyed to see me.
That's cool.
It's just incredible. And so there's that. And I have to tell you one more, because this is my favorite story of all time. I'm waiting. I'm at the line of kids, line of families, and I try and watch the line out of the corner of my eye when I get a chance, just to judge how long to spend, and because I want each kid to have their moment. And I'm watching, and I can see these two brothers in line, an older one, obviously, and a younger one, probably 2 years between them. And the older one is just dinging on the younger one nonstop. He's poking him. He's yelling at him. He's doing all sorts of stuff. They finally get their chance to come up. The older one comes up first. We chat. He tells me he's been totally awesome and wonderful and good. I don't call him on it, and we get to the part where I said, "What would you like for Christmas?" He says, "I want a Nerf gun." Well, I'm totally down with that, as you can tell from my earlier story. And we chat about different Nerf guns, because that's one thing. I mean, Jolene, I'm sorry, this little side story. When you were little, every year before Christmas, we would take all the kids to Toys R Us. And we would say, "We want to take you there so you can see what toys are there, so you can get an idea of what you might want for Christmas." No, the truth is, I wanted to go to Toys R Us because I love toys.
Yeah.
But I love Nerf guns, as you well know.
Oh, it was fun. Yeah.
So we talk, and then he gets off my lap, and his little brother comes up. His little brother is a little more serious. We chat for a while. And I ask him, "What would you like for Christmas?" And he sits there and he ponders and he ponders. Finally, he says, "Well, what did he ask for?" And he points at his older brother. I said, "Well, he asked for a Nerf gun." Without a moment's hesitation, he spins around, looks me in the eye, and says, "Can I have a bigger one?" The best
great.
Christmas request ever.
Can I have a bigger one? It's great.
So, I'm sorry. That's just one of my many, 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 many stories. But just his sincerity and his desire to finally let his older brother have it was a thing of beauty.
That's great. It's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight, and it's been awesome just to hear your experiences and just to see how you've become, more Santa, more like Christ. And I think just a major takeaway for me, and I think for everybody listening, is just like, let's all be, a reflector of that light, at Christmas time and throughout the year. Certainly we are not that light. Like John the Baptist said, "I am not that light, but I am shining the light that he has sent me." And I think as we follow that example, we can all be, Santas and like Jesus to the people in our lives. And like you've heard, even if it's just a small few moments each day with family or friends or even strangers, like if that light is there in our lives, like others can be touched and others can be changed and have just a little bit more warmth and happiness and, of course, peace of Jesus in their life. And that's been a takeaway for me. So with that, we just thank you for coming, and we thank you for everybody for listening. And as always, we'd ask you to if there's anybody that comes to mind as you listen to this that would enjoy it, please share it. This podcast is pretty much almost 100% just word of mouth shared, and we thank you for that. We have listeners literally worldwide. It's not huge by any means, but there are people out there across the world that somehow have found it, and we probably assume that it's because you've shared it, and we appreciate you doing that. So with that, until next time, we'll talk to you then. See ya.